Imagine being deep in the Idaho wilderness tracking wild turkeys when suddenly a sound like a roaring bear shatters the silence. You turn, only to see a massive cow moose rising from the brush, her dark eyes locked onto you with pure fury. Before you can react, she charges. Hooves pounding, nostrils flaring, a wall of muscle and rage closing the distance in seconds. Your shotgun is loaded. But will it be enough to stop her before she slams into you like an NFL linebacker? This is the terrifying, heart-pounding encounter that one hunter barely survived. And it's a story you won't believe. Welcome to Savage Tales Animal Encounters, the channel where we dive deep into the wildest, most intense and downright unbelievable encounters between humans and the animal kingdom. From heart-stopping predator attacks to shocking survival stories, we bring you the real-life moments when nature reminds us who's really in charge. Today we're breaking down an absolutely insane story straight out of Idaho. A turkey hunter's peaceful day in the woods turned into a life-or-death showdown with an enraged moose. We'll take you through the full, jaw-dropping encounter, the survival instincts that kicked in, and what you need to know if you ever find yourself face-to-face with one of North America's most dangerous animals. Before we jump into this wild encounter, make sure you're part of our savage community. Hit that like button if you love adrenaline-pumping animal stories. Subscribe and ring that notification bell so you never miss an episode. We drop new stories every week, and trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next. Got thoughts on today's story? Maybe you've had a close call with wildlife yourself? Drop a comment below. We love hearing your experiences and might even feature your story in a future video. And if you know someone who loves the thrill of the wild, share this video with them, because these are the kinds of stories that deserve to be told. Sit back, buckle up and get ready, because this is Savage Tales, Animal Encounters, where the wild gets real. Now let's get into it. It was a crisp, late afternoon on May 24th, deep in the tangled thickets of Idaho's Snake River bottoms. Jim Dietz, an experienced outdoorsman and lifelong hunter, had taken the day off from his construction job in Rexburg for one last shot at completing his grand slam of turkey hunting. This was his final opportunity to bag a Merriam's turkey, the last subspecies he needed to achieve his goal. With only a few days left in the Idaho season, every moment in the field mattered. Moving methodically through the dense underbrush, Dietz kept his senses sharp. He listened for the distant gobbles of a tom, scanned the terrain for fresh signs of turkey activity, and took in the beauty of the untouched wilderness around him. The area was thick with brambles, tall grass and scattered cottonwoods, with the slow-moving waters of the Snake River weaving through the rugged landscape. It was a picture-perfect setting, one that seemed to promise an afternoon of peaceful solitude and perhaps even success. As Dietz navigated through the thick vegetation, he stepped into an area where the ground grew damp and uneven, the kind of place where wildlife often gathered to drink. Unbeknownst to him, he had unknowingly wandered too close to a hidden creek, a perfect ambush point for the unexpected danger that lay just ahead. Suddenly the silence of the forest shattered. A deep, guttural roar ripped through the air, so loud, so raw, that for a split second Dietz's mind immediately jumped to the worst possible scenario: a bear. The Snake River bottoms were home to both black bears and the occasional grizzly, and this unmistakable sound sent adrenaline surging through his veins. Every hunter knows that when a bear makes that kind of noise, it's an immediate and serious threat. His body tensed. His instinct screamed at him to locate the source. Then, movement! From the thick brush just yards ahead, a massive dark figure surged upward. But it wasn't a bear. It was something just as big, maybe even more dangerous under the right conditions: a cow moose. Towering over Dietz, the enormous creature had been lying low in the dense cover, perfectly concealed until now. Her massive, muscular frame seemed to materialize out of nowhere, and for a split second there was nothing but a tense, frozen moment as Dietz locked eyes with the beast. But it wasn't just the moose that sent a chill through his body. It was what stood just behind her. Two newborn calves, barely able to stand on their spindly legs, huddled in the brush. In that instant, everything clicked. The roar, the sudden movement, the wild intensity in the cow's eyes. He had unknowingly cornered a mother moose and her babies against the creek. She had nowhere to go. And worse, she saw him not as a man with no ill intent, but as a predator threatening her vulnerable young. Dietz knew enough about wildlife behavior to understand what was happening. A mother moose with calves is one of the most dangerous animals a person can encounter in the wild. They may lack the fangs of a bear or the claws of a mountain lion, but their sheer size, strength, and protective instinct make them a force of nature. A moose can weigh up to 1,000 pounds, sprint at speeds of 35 miles per hour, and has the power to crush bones with a single well-placed kick. And this one had already made up her mind. The hairs on Dietz's arms stood on end as the massive cow's ears pinned back. Her long face contorted into pure aggression, her nostrils flared wide, and her body tensed like a coiled spring. There was no hesitation, no bluff charge, no moment for second-guessing. She was coming for him, fast. The instant the cow moose lunged, time seemed to slow. Jim Dietz had mere seconds, no, fractions of a second to react. His hunting instincts kicked in, but there was no time to run, no time to strategize. The massive animal was closing the distance at an alarming speed, her long gangly legs moving with deceptive power, her hooves tearing through the brush like a freight train barreling down the tracks. Dietz's shotgun was already in his hands, loaded with 3 No. 6 turkey shells. Hardly the kind of firepower meant to stop a 1,000-pound behemoth in full charge, but he had no choice. If he didn't act now, he wouldn't get another chance. Boom! His first shot rang out, aimed at the ground in front of the charging moose, a last-ditch effort to startle her, to make her think twice. But it had no effect. She didn't so much as flinch. Boom! The second shot came as she crossed the 10-yard mark, an agonizingly short distance between predator and prey. Another warning blast into the dirt, another desperate attempt to stop what felt like an unstoppable force. Still, she pressed on. By the time he squeezed the trigger on his final round, she was already upon him. Dietz barely had time to raise his shotgun before the full, raw force of the moose slammed into him like a sledgehammer. The impact was nothing short of devastating. It was as if he had been body-slammed by an NFL linebacker, the sheer momentum of the massive animal throwing him backward with violent force. The world turned into a chaotic blur of motion, pain, and pure survival instinct. Dietz hit the ground hard, the breath torn from his lungs as he crashed into the tangled underbrush. His body screamed in pain, his ribs ached, his back throbbed, and the sharp sting of branches and rocks raking across his skin barely registered in the moment. But there was no time to dwell on it. The moose was still on top of him. Even with her massive bulk, she moved with terrifying speed. Hooves flailed, barely missing his head as he scrambled to react. One solid stomp from a moose could crush a skull like an eggshell. And Dietz knew it. He had to act now. His shotgun, his only line of defense, was still clutched in his hands. With sheer desperation, he forced the barrel upward, pressing it against the top of the moose's massive skull. Boom! The third and final shot rang out at point-blank range. The blast rocked the massive animal, sending a tremor through her hulking frame. It was enough. The moose let out a guttural grunt, her body shuddering as she suddenly halted her attack. The rage in her eyes flickered, replaced by momentary confusion. Then, just as suddenly as she had attacked, she turned. Dietz could hardly believe what he was seeing. The moose, bleeding from a wound on her head, was still standing. Despite the close-range shot, she hadn't gone down. Instead, she wheeled around and trotted off into the dense brush, disappearing just as quickly as she had emerged. Silence. The only sound was Dietz's own ragged breathing, his chest heaving as he lay sprawled on the forest floor, his body still vibrating with adrenaline. His hands trembled as he gripped the now empty shotgun, his mind racing to process what had just happened. He was alive, somehow he was alive. Pain pulsed through his body in waves, but miraculously he had suffered no broken bones. His skin was scraped and bruised, his muscles screamed in protest, and a deep soreness was already settling into his ribs where the moose had crashed into him. But compared to what could have happened, being trampled, gored, or even killed, he knew he had just escaped with his life. Slowly, painfully, he pushed himself upright. Every movement was agony, but he forced himself to survey the area. The moose was gone. He spotted her in the distance, bedded down in the brush, her calves still nearby. She was bleeding, but she was alive. And shockingly, even after their brutal encounter, she still had the strength to nurse her young. Dietz didn't waste any more time. He knew he had to report what had happened. Gathering himself, he began the painful, cautious trek back to his vehicle. Every step was a reminder of the sheer power he had just faced. Every ache and bruise was a testament to how close he had come to never leaving these woods again. By the time he contacted the Idaho Fish and Game, the realization of his ordeal had fully set in. Officials commended him for his quick thinking and for reporting the incident, but one fact remained. In the unforgiving wild, survival often comes down to instinct, split-second decisions, and sheer luck. Jim Dietz had faced one of the most dangerous animals in North America and lived to tell the tale. Wow, what a wild ride! Jim Dietz's encounter with that moose was nothing short of insane, and we're so glad you joined us for this incredible survival story. It's a perfect reminder of just how unpredictable and dangerous the wild can be. Every step into nature is a step into the unknown, and sometimes it's a close call that makes us appreciate the power of the animal kingdom even more. If you enjoyed this heart-pounding tale, be sure to like this video so we know you want more action-packed stories. Subscribe to Savage Tales, Animal Encounters, and hit that notification bell. We've got plenty more wild stories coming your way, and you definitely don't want to miss them. Got your own wild encounter or thoughts on Jim's experience? Drop a comment below. We love hearing from you and might feature your story in a future video. Share this video with your fellow adrenaline junkies because everyone should know just how savage the animal kingdom can get. Thanks for watching, and until next time, stay wild, stay safe, and remember, the wild is savage and so are we. Savage Tales, Animal Encounters, where the wild gets real.